In today's video, we are going to improve your English reading, listening, speaking, and vocabulary with a short story. Here's the game plan for today. We're going to be taking a look at this classic story called Time Enough at Last. Time Enough at Last. It's about a person who finds themselves at the end of the world. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to spoil too much, but that's what the story is about. Really fun, interesting story. Here's today's plan. First, we're going to read the story together, breaking down the language, dissecting the language as we go along. I will make sure you guys understand everything, so don't worry. The story's not too easy, not too hard. I think it's going to be a perfect fit. Then we will have a vocabulary breakdown, taking a closer look at some of the challenging language and learning how to use those words accurately. We'll have a quiz after that, and finally, some speaking practice. So guys, if that sounds good to you, go ahead and support me. Support me as your YouTube English teacher by doing one or more of the following things. Watching this video till the end sends a message to YouTube that you liked the video, and it helps my channel by recommending this video to new people who maybe have not seen my content before. Also, you can like the video, you can leave a comment, letting me know where you're watching from, letting me know what you thought about the story, and you can become a channel member. It's only $1, and it gets you access to hours and hours of extra videos, as well as PDFs for all of my lessons. So, thank you guys. Thank you for your support. Let's go ahead and jump in. I've got part one here. We're going to read the story. It's 2,500 words. I'm guessing that will take us maybe 20, 30 minutes to get through. So, your mission, your job, is simply to sit back, relax, enjoy, follow along, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. Time enough at last. Here we go. For a long time, Henry Bemis had had an ambition or a strong desire to do or achieve something. What was his ambition? To read a book. Not just the title or the preface or a page somewhere in the middle. He wanted to read the whole thing, all the way through, from beginning to end. So, our main character, Henry Bemis, what is his goal? What is his ambition, his dream? To read a book, right? He wants to read a whole book. A simple ambition, perhaps, but in the cluttered life of Henry Bemis, an impossibility. So basically, it feels impossible to do something as simple as this, as simple as just get through a book. His life is cluttered, messy. Maybe we could say hectic, chaotic, busy, right? So it feels like an impossibility. It feels impossible. Why? Let's see. Henry had no time of his own. That's the problem. There was his wife, Agnes, who owned that part of it that his employer, Mr. Carsville, did not buy. Henry was allowed enough to get to and from work, that in itself being quite a concession on Agnes's part. So talking about his time, right? I like the way this is phrased. His boss buys a lot of his time, purchases a lot of his time, and then the remaining time that his boss did not purchase, did not buy, is owned as if it's her property, as if it's something she possesses, she has, right? Owned by his wife, Agnes. So he's either working or giving his time to his wife, okay? Also, nature had conspired against Henry by handing him a pair of hopelessly myopic eyes. So basically, he feels like nature is going against him, conspiring against him, right? Because his vision is not very good. His eyesight, his eyesight is poor. Okay, he can't see very well. Poor Henry literally couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Wow, that's pretty bad, right? Pretty bad vision. For a while, when he was very young, his parents had thought him an idiot. When they realized it was his eyes, they got glasses for him. Oh, I feel bad for this guy already, right? Poor Henry. He's got bad eyesight. His parents thought he was an idiot when he was a kid. They didn't think he was very smart. Finally, they realized it wasn't his brain that was the problem. It was his eyes. They got him glasses. Okay, let's keep going. He was never quite able to catch up. There was never enough time. It looked as though Henry's ambition, or his dream, would never be realized, achieved. Then something happened which changed all that. Interesting. Henry was down in the vault of the East Side Bank and Trust when it happened. He had stolen a few moments from the duties of his teller's cage to try to read a few pages of the magazine he had bought that morning. Okay, so he works at the bank. He works as a teller at the bank, working with money. And he's reading on the job, right? Maybe we could call this slacking off. Slacking off. You're supposed to be working. What's he doing? He's reading a magazine, right? But something terrible is about to happen. Or maybe not terrible, maybe good, I'm not sure. Something is about to happen that's going to change his life. Let's see what it is. He'd made an excuse to Mr. Carsville, his boss, about needing bills, or paper money, different bills, right, in large denominations for a certain customer, and then, safe inside the dim of the vault, he had pulled from inside his coat the pocket-sized magazine. Okay, so basically, he snuck off into the vault. That's where they keep the money and the valuables, right? He made an excuse to his boss about, I need to go get something. And then he snuck off into this big vault, into the safe, the dim recesses of the vault. I skipped that word there. Sorry about that. The dim recesses, like a hidden space, right? So he's hiding, basically, hiding at work. He had just started a picture article cheerfully entitled, "The New Weapons and What They'll Do to You," when all the noise in the world crashed in upon his eardrums. So he had just started reading when there was a tremendous explosion of noise. All the noise in the world crashed in upon his eardrums. He heard a really loud sound. It seemed to be inside of him and outside of him all at once. Then the concrete floor was rising up at him, and the ceiling came slanting down at him, down toward him. And for a fleeting second, Henry thought of a story he had started to read once called The Pit and the Pendulum. He regretted in that insane moment that he had never had time to finish that story to see how it came out. Then all was darkness and quiet and unconsciousness. So it seems like there's been an explosion, right? The floor is rising, the ceiling is coming down, and all of this happens in a fleeting second, or a very quick second. It does not last very long, this moment, right? So we can call it fleeting. And maybe his life is flashing before his eyes, right? What happens when his life flashes before his eyes? He thinks about a story that he never had the chance to finish. That's like his final wish, right? He wishes he could finally finish the story, and then he goes unconscious. He gets knocked out, and everything turns to darkness. When Henry came to, when he woke up, he knew that something was desperately wrong with the East Side Bank and Trust. The heavy steel door of the vault was buckled or bent and twisted out of shape. And twisted, and the floor tilted up at a dizzy angle, while the ceiling dipped crazily toward it. So the ceiling is coming down. Maybe we could say collapsing. The ceiling is collapsing down. The floor is broken and sticking up, right? Henry gingerly got to his feet, moving arms and legs experimentally. So he's checking out his arms and legs, making sure he's still okay, right? Testing them. Assured that nothing was broken, he tenderly raised a hand to his eyes. His precious glasses were intact. Okay, so there's been some kind of explosion. He's waking up. He's looking around. He finds that his glasses are intact. Intact. Say that with me. His glasses are intact. Intact. That means not damaged. They're still in one piece. Thank God. He would never have been able to find his way out of the shattered vault without them. Remember, he really needs these glasses, right? He cannot see his hand in front of his face without these glasses. They're really important. He made a mental note to write Dr. Torrance to have a spare pair made and mailed to him. A spare pair. So he wants a second pair of glasses, an extra pair, right? Blasted nuisance not having his prescription on file locally, but Henry trusted no one but Dr. Torrance to grind those thick lenses into his own complicated prescription. So basically, Henry only has one doctor he trusts to make his glasses because his eyes are so bad, right? He doesn't trust just any doctor, any eye doctor. He only trusts this guy, Dr. Torrance. Henry removed the heavy glasses from his face. Instantly, the room dissolved into a neutral blur. Henry saw a pink splash that he knew was his hand, and a white blob come up to meet the pink as he withdrew his pocket handkerchief and carefully dusted the lenses. So he's wiping off his glasses, wiping them off, cleaning them. As he replaced the glasses, they slipped down on the bridge of his nose a little. He had been meaning to have them tightened for some time. Wow. Okay. So these glasses of his, they're sliding down his nose, right? They're sliding down. We call this the bridge of your nose. He's dusting them. He's cleaning them. He's thinking, man, I wish I had had a second pair made. He's really focused on these glasses, isn't he? Pay attention to that because that's going to be important later in the story. He suddenly realized, without the realization actually entering his conscious thoughts, that something momentous had happened. Something worse than the boiler blowing up. Something worse than a gas main exploding. Something worse than anything that had ever happened before. He felt that way because it was so quiet. So he's realizing, oh no, something horrible has happened. That explosion that damaged the room and knocked him unconscious, something horrible has happened. Something momentous, right? Something momentous, very important, especially because of the possible future effects, meaning it's going to change your life, basically, right? There was no whine of sirens, no shouting, no running, just an ominous and all-pervading silence. It's totally quiet. And it's not like a peaceful quiet, right? Not a peaceful silence. It's an ominous silence. Great word to know, you guys. Ominous, meaning giving the impression that something bad is going to happen. You've got a bad feeling, right? If ominous music is playing, it makes you think something bad will happen. So this silence seems like a a dark and evil silence, right? Henry walked across the slanting floor. Slipping and stumbling on the uneven surface, he made his way to the elevator. The car lay crumpled at the foot of the shaft like a discarded accordion. Okay, so the elevator car, the box that you ride up and down in, it lay crumpled or destroyed, smashed up, smushed up, right? At the foot of the shaft, that's the tunnel that goes up and down. The shaft, like a discarded accordion. Discarded meaning tossed aside like trash. Accordion meaning the instrument you play like this. So, oh my goodness. The car of the elevator has been crushed like you might play an accordion. Oof, can't use that. Can't use the elevator. There was something inside of it that Henry could not look at. Something that had once been a person, or perhaps several people. It was impossible to tell now. Oh God, there was a horrible accident. These people in the elevator, it looks like there were people in the elevator. They've been crushed, right? Feeling sick, Henry staggered toward the stairway. The steps were still there, but so jumbled and piled back upon one another that it was more like climbing the side of a mountain than mounting a stairway. Okay, so the stairs are hard to climb. It feels like climbing a mountain at this point. It was quiet in the huge chamber that had been the lobby of the bank. It looked strangely cheerful, with the sunlight shining through the girders where the ceiling had fallen. The dappled sunlight glinted across the silent lobby, and everywhere there were huddled lumps of unpleasantness that made Henry sick as he tried not to look at them. I think he's talking about dead bodies, right? He's in the lobby, the big main area of this bank, looking around. The ceiling has collapsed, and he sees bodies all over the place, right? He feels sick to his stomach looking at this. "Mr. Carsville?" he called. It was very quiet. Something had to be done, of course. This was terrible, right in the middle of a Monday, too. The world is ending, and he's thinking about, oh man, on a Monday. Of course this would happen on a Monday. That's kind of funny. Mr. Carsville would know what to do. He's looking for his boss. His boss will know what to do, right? He called again more loudly, and his voice cracked hoarsely, "Mr. Carsville." And then he saw an arm and shoulder extending, reaching out from under a huge fallen block of marble ceiling. Uh-oh. Is it his boss? Is his boss alive? In the buttonhole was the white carnation Mr. Carsville had worn to work that morning. And on the third finger of that hand was a massive signet ring, also belonging to Mr. Carsville. Numbly, Henry realized that the rest of Mr. Carsville was under that block of marble. Marble is like a type of stone, basically, right? So what's happening? He's looking around, and he recognizes the arm of his boss, Mr. Carsville. Okay? He's looking around. He sees the arm. He identifies it as being his boss. He identifies the arm as belonging to his boss. How? By the ring, right? He sees the ring on the finger. That's Mr. Carsville's ring. And he feels numb. He feels numb, like the feeling has left his body, realizing that his boss is dead. Henry felt a pang of real sorrow. Great word here, pang. If you feel a pang of something, it's always a negative emotion. could be pain, could be distress, could be sadness. In this case, Henry feels a pang of real sorrow. Sorrow means sadness, deep, deep sadness, right? Mr. Carsville was gone, and so was the rest of the staff, the people working there. Mr. Wilkinson and Mr. Emery and Mr. Prittard, and the same with Pete and Ralph and Jenkins and Hunter and Pat, the guard, and Willie the doorman. There was no one to say what was to be done about the East Side Bank and Trust except Henry Bemis. And Henry wasn't worried about the bank. There was something he wanted to do. Okay, so Henry, he's realizing everyone is gone. Everyone is dead. Remember, the only reason he's still alive is because he snuck into the vault, the very protected and safe vault of the bank, to read a magazine. That saved his life, right? He climbed carefully over piles of fallen masonry. Once he stepped down into something that crunched and squashed beneath his feet, and he set his teeth on edge to keep from retching, from throwing up, retching. I think he stepped on a dead body, right? The street was not much different from the inside. Bright sunlight and so much concrete to crawl over. But the unpleasantness was much, much worse. Everywhere there were strange, motionless lumps that Henry could not look at. I think these descriptions of dead bodies are very disturbing, right? Strange, motionless lumps, weird, not moving piles, right? He can't bring himself to look at these piles. Suddenly, he remembered Agnes. He finally remembers he has a wife. Is she okay? He should be trying to get to Agnes, shouldn't he? He remembered a poster he had seen that said, "In event of emergency, do not use the telephone. Your loved ones are as safe as you." He wondered about Agnes. He looked at the smashed automobiles, some with their four wheels pointing skyward, like the stiffened legs of dead animals. He couldn't get to Agnes now anyway. If she was safe, then she was safe. Otherwise, so he's thinking, there's no point in trying to get to her, right? There's no use. If she's safe, she's safe. If she's not safe, well, there's nothing he can do about it. Of course, Henry knew Agnes wasn't safe. He had a feeling that there wasn't anyone safe for a long, long way. Maybe not in the whole state or the whole country or the whole world. No, that was a thought Henry didn't want to think. He forced it from his mind and turned his thoughts back to Agnes. She had been a pretty good wife now that it was all said and done. Okay, so he's realizing, he's being honest with himself here. He's thinking, you know what? She's probably dead. And he's remembering her fondly now, fondly, in a nice way, thinking she had been a pretty good wife overall, now that it was all said and done. It's a great expression in English. Now that everything is over, right? It wasn't exactly her fault if people didn't have time to read nowadays. It was just that there was the house and the bank and the yard. There were the Joneses for bridge and the Graysons for canasta and charades with the Bryants, talking about different games they would play with different people they know, right? Maybe card games. And the television Agnes loved to watch but would never watch alone. So she wants her husband to watch with her, right? He never had time to read even a newspaper. He started thinking about last night, that business about the newspaper. So what is this talking about here? He's thinking, it's not her fault that I never had time to read anything. He's reasoning and rationalizing in his head why he never had time to read. He's saying it's not her fault. We had all of these different things to do, like TV and card games and this and that. He remembers this thing, something that happened about a newspaper, right? Henry settled into his chair quietly, afraid that a creaking spring might call to Agnes's attention. The fact that he was momentarily unoccupied. So basically, he sits down very carefully because if the chair makes any noise, Agnes might realize he is momentarily unoccupied, meaning for the time being, at the present moment, right now, momentarily, he's got nothing to do. He's unoccupied, right? He had unfolded the newspaper slowly and carefully. The sharp crackle of the paper would have been a clarion call to Agnes. He had glanced at the headlines of the first page, collapse of conference imminent. He didn't have time to read the article. He turned to the second page. Solon predicts war only days away. Okay, so he's glancing at the newspaper and he's seeing headlines in the paper about something imminent, something that is going to happen soon. If something is imminent, it's a bad thing and it's going to happen soon. In this case, it feels like the imminent end of the world. Okay, maybe this is like a nuclear war that's happened here, right? He flipped through the pages faster, reading brief snatches here and there, afraid to spend too much time on any one item. So he's just scanning, reading quickly. On a back page was a brief article entitled Prehistoric Artifacts Unearthed in Yucatan. Henry smiled to himself and carefully folded the sheet of paper into fourths. That would be interesting. He would read all of it. Then it came, Agnes's voice, Henry! And then she was upon him. So just as he was getting ready to read an interesting article about these prehistoric artifacts that somebody unearthed or dug up in the Yucatan Peninsula, right? These old things that they found, these very, very old things. That sounds interesting to him. He's getting ready to read. And then his wife calls out to him, "Oh no, Henry." She lightly flicked the paper out of his hands and into the fireplace. He saw the flames lick up and curl possessively around the unread article. Oh no, she threw his article into the fire. Agnes continued, "Henry, tonight is the Joneses' bridge night. They'll be here in 30 minutes and I'm not dressed yet, and here you are reading." She had emphasized the last word as though it were an unclean act. She hates when he reads, right? "Hurry and shave. You know how smooth Jasper Jones's chin always looks. And then straighten up this room." Okay. So she's saying, "Look, Henry, we're going to have company tonight. There are people coming over. We need to get the room ready. We need to clean, straighten up the room, right? Make sure everything looks good. And you need to shave." She even compares him to one of her friends' husbands, this guy Jasper Jones. She says, Jasper's chin always looks smooth, clean-shaven. Why doesn't your chin look clean-shaven? So she compares him to another man. Oh, very rude, right? She glanced regretfully toward the fireplace. Oh dear, that paper, the television schedule. Oh well, after the Jones leave, there won't be time for anything but the late movie, and don't just sit there, Henry. Hurry. So for a second, she actually regrets knocking the article, the paper, out of Henry's hands and knocking it into the fire, not because she has done something mean to her husband, but because now she has lost the television schedule, right? Henry was hurrying now, but hurrying too much. He cut his leg on a twisted piece of metal that had once been an automobile fender. Okay, so he's remembering this thing that happened the night before. This was all the previous evening, the night before. And as he's rushing along now, he hurts himself. He cuts his leg. He thought about things like lockjaw and gangrene. What is gangrene? Gangrene is when your flesh, your body dies because of loss of blood supply. And he's thinking, if I get hurt, it's the end of the world. All of the doctors are gone. One cut could kill me, right? He's realizing he needs to be careful as he walks around out here. And his hand trembled, it shook as he tied his pocket handkerchief around the wound. In his mind, he saw the fire again, licking across the face of last night's newspaper. He thought that now he would have time to read all the newspapers he wanted to. Only now there wouldn't be any more. That heap of rubble across the street had been the Gazette building. A Gazette is a newspaper, right? It was terrible to think there would never be another up-to-date newspaper. They're not going to make newspapers anymore, right? If it's the end of the world. Agnes would have been very upset. No television schedule. But then, of course, no television. He wanted to laugh, but he didn't. That wouldn't have been fitting. Not at all. He could see the building he was looking for now, but the silhouette was strangely changed. Silhouette meaning the outline of the building, the shape of the building, right? This is interesting, this mentality he has about his wife, Agnes. It seems like there's a lot he wants to think and a lot of feelings he wants to feel about her and about his relationship and about his life, but he restrains himself, right? He holds himself back. He stops himself. That great circular dome was now a ragged semicircle, half of it gone, and one of the great wings of the building had fallen in upon itself. A sudden panic gripped Henry Bemis. What if they were all ruined, destroyed, every one of them? What if there wasn't a single one left? Tears of helplessness welled in his eyes as he painfully fought his way over and through the twisted fragments of the city. Okay, so he's not looking for Agnes. He's not looking for his wife. He's looking for something else. Can you guys guess what he's looking for? There are tears welling in his eyes, welling up in his eyes. He's going to cry, and he's fighting his way over and through all of the debris around, the twisted fragments. A fragment is like a little piece of the city, basically meaning everything is destroyed. The city is a big, big mess, right? He thought of the building when it had been whole. He remembered the many nights he had paused outside its wide and welcoming doors. He thought of the warm nights when the doors had been thrown open and he could see the people inside, see them sitting at the plain wooden tables with the stacks of books beside them. He used to think then what a wonderful thing a public library was, a place where anybody at all could go in and read. So we have our answer here. It's the end of the world. He doesn't run back to his house. He doesn't look for his wife. What does he do? He goes to the public library, but he finds it in ruins, right? The building has been destroyed. He had been tempted to enter many times. He had been tempted to go inside. In other words, he really wanted to go into the library, He had watched the people through the open doors, the man in greasy work clothes who sat near the door, night after night, laboriously studying. A technical journal, perhaps, difficult for him, but promising a brighter future. So he had watched the people who would go to the library, all sorts of different people, right? The first one is a man in greasy work clothes, and he is laboriously studying. Okay, he's studying with great effort and difficulty. He's trying to make a better life for himself. Maybe he's a blue-collar worker. He works kind of a low-pay, low-wage job, but he wants to build a better future, so he's spending time at the library, right? Then there had been an aged, scholarly gentleman who sat on the other side of the door, leisurely paging, moving his lips a little as he did so. A man having little time left, but rich in time because he could do so with it as he chose. So basically, there's another person he remembers having seen at the library, an older, scholarly gentleman. Yes, a gentleman, somebody who seems like they're very cultured, right? And very scholarly, like they've read a lot of books. So Henry is looking at this guy and thinking, wow, I'm jealous of him. Even though he is old and he doesn't have much time left in his life, look at how he's using that time. He gets to sit around and read and, read leisurely in a relaxed way, in an unhurried way. Remember that Henry never has a chance to do this. He never has a chance to read leisurely, right? Okay. Henry had never gone in to the library. He had started up the steps once, got almost to the door, but then he remembered Agnes, her questions and shouting, and he had turned away. He was going in now, though, almost crawling, his breath coming in stabbing gasps. His hands torn, cut, and bleeding. His trouser leg was sticky red, where the wound in his leg had soaked through the handkerchief. It was throbbing, throbbing badly, but Henry didn't care. He had reached his destination. Part of the inscription was still there over the now doorless entrance. PUBCLIBR. That's part of the inscription, part of the words, right? The rest had been torn away. The place was in shambles. Great expression here. If a place is in shambles, it's in a state of complete disorder, chaos. In other words, it's a big, big mess, right? The shelves were overturned, knocked over, broken, smashed, tilted. Their precious contents spilled in disorder upon the floor. A lot of the books, Henry noted gleefully or happily, were still intact. There's a vocab word, intact, still in one piece, still whole, still readable. He was literally knee-deep in them. He wallowed in books. He picked one up. The title was Collected Works of William Shakespeare. Yes, he must read that sometime. He laid it aside carefully. So now, Henry is in this public library, or, what's left of this public library, sifting through the books. And, all of the shelves have been overturned, knocked over. It's a big, big mess, this place. And he's wading through the piles of books as if he's wading through water, right? They come up to his knees even. That's how high the piles go. And he's picking through, sifting through, searching through the piles, finding books he might want to read, picking them up, setting them aside. Ooh, that's so exciting. He picked up another, Spinoza. He tossed it away, seized another, and still another. Which to read first? There were so many. He is overwhelmed with the possibilities. He had been conducting himself a little like a starving man in a delicatessen, a deli, grabbing a little of this and a little of that in a frenzy of enjoyment. So in other words, here's a great expression. We could say he's having a field day. He's having a field day. He's having a great time going through, picking things out, but now he studied away. From the pile about him, he selected one volume, one book, sat comfortably down on an overturned shelf, and opened the book. Henry Bemis smiled. There was the rumble of complaining stone, minute or small in comparison with the epic complaints following the fall of the bomb. This one occurred under one corner of the shelf upon which Henry sat. Okay, so what's happening? The shelf moved, threw him off balance. The glasses slipped from his nose and fell with a tinkle. Oh no. Oh no. So he sat down on the shelf. Something shifted, something changed. He was off balance, and then the glasses fell from his face. He bent down, clawing blindly, and found, finally, their smashed remains. A minor, indirect destruction stemming from the sudden wholesale smashing of a city, but the only one that greatly interested Henry Bemis. In other words, now his glasses are broken, just as the city has been broken, just like the city is broken, right? But he doesn't really care about the broken city. He cares about what? His broken glasses. He stared down at the blurred page before him. He began to cry. The end. Now, guys, for part 2, the vocabulary breakdown, we're going to briefly talk about what the words mean, and then we're going to have some shadowing practice. So we're going to read an example sentence for each word. What I want you to do is say the sentence with me or pause and repeat. All right? So starting with ambition. Ambition is a strong desire to do or achieve something. Let's say this together. Ready? Her main ambition is to become a doctor and help people. Okay, awesome. Next, we have cluttered, meaning filled with too many things, messy, unorganized. Let's say this together. Ready? His desk was so cluttered with papers that he couldn't find his pen. You know, my office space here is pretty cluttered as well. It drives my wife crazy. This word is concession. Basically, if you make a concession, you say, okay, and you give in a little bit. For example, as a concession to his daughter, he agreed to let her stay out an hour later. Let's say that again. Ready? As a concession to his daughter, he agreed to let her stay out an hour later. So basically, she wants to stay out really late. He says, no, you can't stay out that late. Her dad says that, but he makes a small concession, right? He says, okay, I'll give you one more hour, okay? Maybe we could also say a compromise, adjustment, an allowance. How about this word conspired? That's when you make a secret plan to do something bad. Look at this sentence. Let's say it together. Ready? The thieves conspired to steal the famous painting from the museum. So we could also say they plotted to steal it. They schemed to steal the painting. They collaborated in kind of an evil way, right? Look at this word, myopic. Myopic. An interesting word because it can mean two different things. It can mean you have bad eyesight or poor eyesight. You can't see very well. Or it can mean that you don't think about the long term. You don't plan for the long term. You're very short-sighted when it comes to planning. Let's say example 2 together. Ready? The company's myopic plan focused on quick profits instead of long-term growth. So this plan that the company has, it's very nearsighted, very short-sighted. It doesn't really take into consideration the long-term plan, right? The longevity of the company, its ability to exist for a long time, right? So if you're focused too much on the short term and not very much on the long term, maybe that is myopic of you, right? Moving on, we have realized. Of course, to realize something is to become aware of it, but it can also mean you make a dream or a goal come true. Let's read this together. Ready? After years of hard work, he finally realized his dream of owning a restaurant. Okay, great. So maybe we could say you achieve your dream, you accomplish your dream. How about recesses? Recesses, areas that are hard to reach. So look at this. Let's say this one together. Ready? The kitten was hiding in the dark recesses of the old closet. Now we can use this word recesses because these are small areas that are hard to reach. They're not very accessible. So we could call them inaccessible, right? Maybe we could say the depths of the closet, the deep cavities of the closet. Okay? Moving on to fleeting, meaning something does not last very long. How about example 2 here? Let's say it together. They shared a fleeting moment of understanding before the argument continued. Kind of a funny one. So they're having an argument. They're having a spat, a disagreement. And in the middle of that argument, they have a fleeting moment of understanding. It passes very quickly. It's very brief, very momentary, very short-lived, very temporary. But there is a second where they agree with each other and they understand each other, but then it's gone and they continue arguing, right? How about this word buckled? Okay. Collapse because of heat or pressure or weakness. Let's say this sentence together. Ready? The bridge buckled under the weight of the heavy truck. So the heavy truck, it's going across the bridge. What does the bridge do? It crumples, it buckles, it bends, it becomes warped, right? Under the weight, under the pressure. How about this word gingerly? Great word here. If you do something gingerly, then you do it delicately. Maybe carefully would be a good synonym here. Let's read this sentence here. He touched his sore arm gingerly to see if it was still painful. So he doesn't grab his arm, right? He just touches it very lightly, very cautiously. We could say gingerly. Another fantastic word here. We saw this in the story, intact. Now, unfortunately, when he picked up his glasses and examined them, they were not intact, right? They were damaged, destroyed, broken. The lenses had been shattered, right? But if something is intact, then it's still in one piece, okay? It hasn't been damaged. Let's say this sentence together. Despite the car accident, everyone was safe and the car was mostly intact. Okay, so there's an accident And even though there was an accident, everyone is okay. Even the car is mostly intact, so it wasn't damaged very much. How about momentous? Very important because it has a big effect on the future, right? Very significant, historic. Okay. How about this sentence here? Ready? Graduating from university was a momentous achievement in their life. It was a momentous achievement. It's very important. It's going to have a big effect on the future, so we can call that momentous. You hear it used that way often, a momentous occasion. When something very important, very big takes place, right? How about ominous? Remember the ominous silence after the explosion in the story. It's very unpleasant. Basically, if something is ominous, it makes you feel like something bad is about to happen. Menacing, threatening, sinister. Okay, so let's read this together. There was an ominous silence in the room before she gave the bad news. An ominous silence. A pang of something. A sudden, sharp feeling of pain or a strong negative emotion. Let's read this together. Ready? He felt a sharp pang of guilt when he remembered his promise. So maybe he broke that promise, right? And because he broke it, he felt a pang of guilt, like a stab of guilt. How about laboriously? Laboriously. If you do something in a way that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, we can say that it's done laboriously. Let's read this together. He laboriously climbed the steep mountain path, stopping often to rest. Okay, great. Let's keep going. Leisurely may be the opposite of laboriously, right? And remember, in the story, Henry wanted time to read leisurely. He wanted to read in a relaxed way without hurrying, right? An unhurried way, okay? Let's read example 2 here. Let's say it together. He ate his breakfast leisurely while reading the newspaper. So he's not hurrying through his breakfast, not rushing through. He's taking his time. He's eating leisurely. Okay. Last word here, shambles. Shambles. In a complete state of confusion. If something is a mess, we can say it's in shambles. Okay. How about this sentence here together? After the children's birthday party, the whole house should be in shambles. Was in shambles, right? So, maybe kids made a big mess. Their toys are everywhere. Maybe they broke something. Maybe they spilled their food on the furniture. Okay. The house is a wreck. It's in shambles. It's a big mess. Okay. Awesome. And here we are at part 3. I'm going to give you guys a quiz, okay? Let's see if you can figure out which of those vocab words we just talked about fits in the blank here. And you can see I've given you a little hint, the first couple of letters in parentheses, okay? So here's the sentence. After the earthquake, the city was in something, with buildings collapsed everywhere. After the earthquake, the city was in, do you know it? 3, 2, 1. It was in shambles. It was a big mess. It was a big disaster. How about this one? He felt something of regret immediately after saying something unkind to his friend. Do you know it? He felt a pang of regret. Oh, the old documents were surprisingly something. having survived the fire without any damage. Okay, so they weren't damaged. They were unharmed by the fire. The old documents were surprisingly intact. Intact. Great job, guys. She's something. Picked up the fragile vase. Afraid she might drop it. So this vase is very fragile. It could break very easily, right? Fragile. So how did she pick it up? She picked it up. Do you know it? Gingerly. Ooh, carefully. Picked it up so gingerly. The discovery of a cure for the disease was a something event in medical history. A big event, an important event, do you remember? 3, 2, 1. Momentous event in medical history. Now, here we are at part 4. Guys, if you have made it all the way through this video, take your hand, give yourself a pat on the back, because as your YouTube English teacher, I'm very, very proud of you. You've done an amazing job. Part 4 is an open-ended discussion question. Okay, let's take a look. Henry Bemis finally has all the time in the world to read, but then his glasses break, right? At the end of the story. The story ends with him crying. If you were the last person left on Earth, how would you spend your time? Kind of a fun question here. So there are 2 ways you could respond to this. You could challenge yourself to speak out loud, or you could write your answer down below in the comments. Okay? Now, on this video, I'm going to be responding to every single comment. So don't be afraid to ask me for help. If you want some feedback on your writing, feel free to ask. You can say, Connor, give me feedback. And I am more than happy to help with grammar, with spelling, with word choice, helping you make your writing sound more natural. You can write as much as you want, okay? But I'm going to go first, and I'm going to give you an example of what I'd like you to try and do. I'm going to challenge myself to talk for a full minute about this topic. Here I go. For me personally, when I think about this idea, the end of the world, what if I was the last person in the world? How would I fill my days? How would I spend my time? What would I do? Something that comes to mind is, yes, reading, like Henry Bemis in the story, but also exploring places I wouldn't normally be able to explore. For example, the homes of super rich people, right? Imagine walking through a billionaire's mansion, Mark Zuckerberg's mansion. Imagine walking through the White House, okay, or buildings you wouldn't normally have access to. I think that would be kind of depressing and kind of interesting. But, you know, I think in the end, I might be a lot like the main character. I might read a lot of books. How about you guys? That was my 1-minute response to this question. Once again, try it yourself or go down into the comments and you can write your response there for some feedback. You know, I want to take a second and thank you guys so much for watching my content. You know, I mentioned this a lot, but my channel has not been doing very well. Views are very, very low. But despite that, there are a lot of people who still support me. Look at all of my channel members. I want to give you guys a massive shout out. There are hundreds of you, and this doesn't even include everyone on Patreon, but I want to give you guys a massive, massive thank you. Without your support, I would have stopped making videos a long time ago. So you guys literally keep me going, and I appreciate your support so very much. You guys are going to get a PDF for this video, and it will be a great tool for reviewing. We talked about a lot of new words, You can reread the story by yourself. You can take notes. You can focus on the vocab words that are really troubling you, that you're struggling with, and you can get even more out of this lesson with the PDF. So a massive thank you to my channel members, and guys, to the rest of you, once again, don't forget, it's only $1 to sign up. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I'll see you again next time.